What is going on, people? It's Matt from Liquid Loans. Happy Friday to everyone watching. In this video, in this stream, I'm going to be talking to my partner in crime, Jesse, the pit boss, about stablecoins, the risks, the pros, the cons, and all that good stuff. So with no further ado, let me bring him up. What is going on, buddy?
How you doing?
Nice. How you doing? Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good to see you. Another busy week at the Liquid Loans headquarters. Lots going on. Referral program came out last week. Busy with that, and lots going on. How are you feeling about the whole ecosystem on this fine Friday?
Well, I'm really excited about what Liquid Loans is offering because, like, right now there's a lot of fear in traditional stablecoins, right? There's a lot of government regulations that might be coming, at least some oversight and questions from Congress and from different governments. And it's kind of funny because we sit back and we're those same concerns don't apply. It's almost funny, right? Because everyone's flocked to all those fiat-backed stablecoins, and now I wouldn't necessarily call it a house of cards, but there's a lot of crap coming down the pipe for those coins. And what Liquid Loans offers with the USDL is like completely separate and detached from all that nonsense. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's absolutely night and day when you look at what the market currently has compared to what USDL can offer. Before we get into the USDL pros, let's talk about some of the risks with the fiat-backed stablecoins. What are the main risks you see?
Well, there's a number of them. So, for one, none of them are immutable. So, like, the code can be changed at any time. The institutions that run these mechanisms, they're responsible for burning and minting and just releasing more of these into the crypto markets. And what we found is, like, a lot of these stablecoins are not even fully backed. Right. So with Tether, when you mint something off of collateral, which is what Liquid Loans does, but the fiat-backed stablecoins are supposed to do the same thing. People bring in their collateral, and their collateral is fiat. And then off of each of those paper dollars, that institution holds, they should be allowed to mint one single, USDT, for example. That's not what happens at all. Instead, they literally just mint as many of these USDT as they want, and then they take everybody's fiat dollars and they go invest in other things. And oftentimes those things that they invest in come crashing down, or that company that they have that money tied up in, files for bankruptcy. And then what you end up with is a huge fractional reserve. You have all these stable coins that are in people's wallets, and they're trading and they're doing all these things, and they're not backed. None of them are backed. It's just imaginary. So you have the risk of, first off, fiat itself, with its, in certain governments, hyperinflation, right? In other government, the US dollar, for example, it's just in, extreme of inflation. It's also not backed by anything.
Sure.
It used to be backed by gold back in the gold standard days, right? But not anymore. But then you further compound that same problem by minting a stable coin that's supposed to be backed by that thing that's not backed by anything, but it's not, right? So it's just a giant imaginary. You have this thing that's not really worth what it says it is, right? If everybody tried to cash out their USDT, it would be impossible. Now you hear this argument in other cryptos as well. Well, if everybody tried to cash out at the same time, of course it's going to go to zero. But that's different. That's speculative assets. With a stable coin, every single one of them is supposed to be fully backed and redeemable back for the thing that it's representing. And that's not what's happening with fiat-backed stablecoins. So the government has taken notice to this problem, and they've said, well, wait a minute. How come there's no regulation at all? If you're going to screw with taxpayer dollars and then you're going to mint something that represents the taxpayer dollars, we need to at least have some understanding and some control over this, right? So now there's hearings and there's things to try and figure out what the heck is going on with these fiat-backed stablecoins. Now that's very different than something like USDL from the Liquid Loans Protocol that is not backed by a fiat dollar at all. It is backed by a speculative asset, being Pulse Coin itself. It's backed by that. And it's backed by a dollar's worth of that. So it's always redeemable for a dollar's worth of something, but it's not backed by a dollar. Right. So it's a very, very different mechanism. So all those same fears that people have with the fiat-backed stablecoins and the regulation, the oversight, they simply don't apply. They don't apply at all with the USDL.
Yeah, because USDL is over collateralized compared to the fractionally reserved legacy system and the centralized stablecoin. Like going back to what you were saying earlier, I think it's fair to say it is a house of cards, because really most of the stablecoins out there have mirrored the legacy financial system, right? They're centralized, they're fractionally reserved, they have the admin keys, right? So they can turn it on and off. And crypto, as we know, was invented to get rid of middlemen, was peer-to-peer, between me and you. So having all that...
Back in 2008, right? You had the housing crisis. Caused a big problem. Caused a crash. A lot of people lost a lot of money. And a lot of people lost faith in the dollar. And as a result of that, some smart people created Bitcoin to remove the middlemen. And here we are years and years and years later, and people have forgotten that. And they're now... people are latching on to these very middleman-laden cryptocurrencies that are attached to the very problem that crypto was invented for to begin with. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we've gone round and round in circles, and I think it will go round and round in circles until protocols like true DeFi protocols like Liquid Loans pop up and show the market that you don't need to be in USDT, where a lot of the times, because the trading pairs with other cryptos are USDT, people use it, but you hear people say all the time, oh yeah, I use it and I hold some, but I don't feel confident in it. You know what I mean? So if you don't feel confident in it, you could wake up tomorrow and your $1,000 or however $100,000 that was in your Binance account or wherever on your Trezor or Ledger or MetaMask could be gone because something's happened, right? It's all collapsed in on itself. Like you said, anyone can come into the system in the Liquid Loans protocol and redeem one USDL for $1 worth of Pulse. And as we've seen with Liquidity, which is over collateralized, there's about, what'd you say, 2.5 billion collateral and about 900 million in debt, and it's working flawlessly. So
Now, so there's other issues that are completely negated with this protocol. So what's interesting is USDC, USDT, all stable coins, they're not really always a dollar's worth, because while they're backed, they're supposed to be backed by something, right? Here's where the problem comes in. So let's just dive into where the house of cards could come down for some of these things. So in an automated market maker, you have a coin on each side. And if you have a stable coin and it's paired to ETH, okay, and ETH dumps 20% because it's tied back to Bitcoin and maybe Bitcoin dumped, right? So now ETH drops 20% in value. It actually pulls down the stable coin in value, right? The two halves of a automated market maker pairing, they have to be the same value across the pair. Okay. Usually the most liquid thing will yank down like the less liquid thing in a pair, right? So if ETH just dumps, there's no controlling it, then USDC will dump with it. USDT will dump with it. LUSD will dump with it. So sometimes you actually see stablecoins that are trading at like 80 cents. So if like ETH dumps 20%, you'll see USDC trading at 80 cents. You should be able to buy that, bring the ratios back, so it's like still $1, so you can, so it brings it back to $1. So you adjust the ratios by buying the price up and bring it back to $1. There should be an arbitrage event. So you buy up cheap stablecoin, it pegs the price back to $1. You take that stablecoin and then you go redeem it. But here's the problem with fiat-backed stablecoins. Nobody's going to give you $1, a paper dollar, or a digital dollar like Coinbase for something you bought for 80 cents, 2 minutes ago. It's not going to happen. And in the case of USDT, they can't do that, because if everybody does that, like, it's not like there's not enough fiat there to give the people if they tried to do that arbitrage event. So instead, what you see happen is when the markets dump for ETH, you see USDC will dump with it, and then USDC just hovers around 80 cents. There will be some arbitrage, but it'll come up to like 90, 92 cents, and it'll stay there for several hours. You're like, wow, that's weird. USDC is supposed to be $1, but it's at 92 cents all day. And it's really unusual. Okay. Now with algorithmic stablecoins, that problem literally goes out the window, because with USDL, you see, okay, if Pulse dumps 20% or something, all right, USDL will dump and you'll see, oh, it's 80 cents. People can come in and they buy it. It changes the ratio, brings it straight back to $1. And then they can redeem each one of those things that they bought for 80 cents inside the protocol for $1 worth of Pulse. So when the markets are dumping and everybody's losing their money, the arbitrageurs are actually making money. And they're making money by stabilizing the system, by buying up the dollar, bringing it right back to $1, and then directly redeeming it inside the protocol back for $1 worth of Pulse. They just made 20%. And they actually saved some accounts from liquidation during this big market dump in the act of redeeming. They're bringing the entire collateral health of the system safer and safer and safer, simply by pegging the value back to $1. It's an amazing system, and there's no centralization anywhere in it. It's completely community driven, and everybody can profit and everybody benefits from it.
So for people just watching this, or maybe need that broken down in a more simpler term, what you're saying is that the fact that people can come in and redeem that USDL for Pulse actually is that hard price floor and pushes that price back to $1. Is that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about, I've heard you talk about the liquidity, LUSD, and how that actually holds its peg much better than other coins like USDC and USDT.
It does. Absolutely. When you look at the charts and you start stacking them on top of each other, you'll see that LUSD from the liquidity protocol, because of this arbitrage that I'm talking about, that anybody can do, when the markets dump and stable coins lose their peg, LUSD gets its peg back within minutes. People buy it back up and it's already worth $1 again. And you do not see the same thing with Tether or with USDC or a lot of these other coins, because they're controlled by the institutions who are not who literally just will not give you $1 worth of fiat until the markets recover. Like if you tried to do this arbitrage event, you would just see a pending status just sit there pending until the markets have recovered. Meanwhile, they're doing the arbitrage and they're making money on people, but they're not going to let you.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why it's good that we talk about this and straighten this out, because I've seen on other streams where you've been debating people and they've been coming up with these theories in their head that they're going to buy USDL for cheap and, be making like 10, 20 cents on the dollar, and it's going to be there for a long time. But like you said, as people redeem, it pushes that price back up.
They can if the markets dump and it loses its peg, just like all the other stable coins.
Of course, yeah. In that scenario, I think some of these people were talking about, like, most of the time they think the USDL is
Yeah,
going to be
no,
trading below
absolutely
$1.
not.
Yeah.
It's a feature. It's a feature of being able to do that and peg it back
Mm.
to $1 very quickly
Yeah.
that
And
other
I don't
stable
think people.
coins don't necessarily have.
Yeah, exactly. It's algorithmically backed, right? So it's always the algorithm's working to get that back to so you can always redeem that for $1's worth of pulse, and therefore that pushes, that's like that hard price floor. If you go on the website or read the white paper, it talks about this a lot, about that
Mhm.
hard, you have that pressure pushing back up always to keep that USDL as close to $1 as possible, or at $1 most of the time. And
Right.
I think that's so important. I think people don't understand how important that a algorithmic stablecoin on Pulse chain is, because let's explain to people why they need that. Why does Pulse chain need an algorithmic stablecoin?
Um, well, the alternative, like literally, there are other alternatives. There are fiat-backed stablecoins. Now we have heard the argument um, that some people prefer a fiat-backed stablecoin because they can, it's easier to off-ramp. Oh, you want a
Mm,
fiat-backed stablecoin because you can directly off-ramp. That's BS. I'm gonna say it right here. I don't care who said that out of their mouth. It's BS. You can buy DAI. You can buy DAI right now. Algorithmic stablecoin. Send it to Coinbase. Sell it for
mm,
cash. Now, in the background, Coinbase is doing what they need to swap that for USDC. That USDC, increments throughout the day, burns itself, because they gave you fiat for it. But like that's trash. You can send DAI and some TUSD. You could send all sorts of different. Well, TUSD is not an algorithmic, but there are algorithmic stablecoins that you can send direct to fiat off ramps and just sell it
mm.
straight for cash. That's not a
Yep,
concern at all. So
sure.
why would you want to have counterparty risk of the institutions, the counterparty risk of the governments coming in to control the institutions, right? There's two. And then they have admin keys. There's a third risk. And then if
Mm,
this fiat-backed stablecoin is bridged into Pulse Chain, well, then you have the risk of the bridge itself, right, with its admin keys.
mm,
Now you're relying on Ethereum chain to be successful. If something weird happens over an Ethereum chain and you've bridged in something, okay, so now you're trying to like tie everything back to the Ethereum chain. Wasn't the point to like get away from that and run its
mm,
own? Like you're just stacking risk after risk after risk with a fiat-backed stablecoin. It's ridiculous.
mm.
Alternatively, we have Pulse. We have a community, and we can simply mint a coin off of $1 worth of Pulse. It's very, very simple. And for people that read the white paper, usually you get to page 5 or 6, and all of a sudden it makes sense.
Mm.
And then you start deep diving. You come to the Telegram and you ask questions. Or you look at the liquidity protocol and you figure out, oh, that's how it holds its peg. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. Have a community-run trustless stablecoin that's directly redeemable for $1 worth of pulse. And as long as we all believe that the blockchain will be successful and not go to
Mm.
zero, then the stablecoin will be successful. And it will
Yeah.
also not go to zero.
Sure. What about some of the pushback that we've heard on different streams or maybe on social media about, oh, you won't be able to get out? Because, okay, we know as we speak that people are working on a direct on and off fiat ramp for Pulse chain, for
Mhm.
USDL, for Pulse. But let's say that's not around for a while. There's going to be a bridge to Ethereum. Can you explain to people how, if I go into the protocol and I mint myself some USDL, how am I going to get that out into the real world to buy a car, Lambo, house, living expenses, whatever?
Um, what happens if you have any of the 40,000 coins on the Pulse chain and there's no bridge? You're
Can't
stuck.
get out. Yeah.
Everybody's screwed. You're stuck. If
Mm,
there's no bridge, we're all screwed, and it's a walled
sure.
garden, and nobody can get out.
Yeah.
If there's no fiat off ramp where you could just send some of those coins directly off and then have an institution accept the PRC 20, you know, because they trade it on their platform or whatever, then we're all stuck. And this whole thing was just stupid to begin with. All right. So we can only hope that that's not going to happen. But if there's a bridge, you can get out, because every single USDL is directly redeemable for $1 worth of pulse. There's also liquidity pools that'll be fully stocked and incentivized, and those will be building themselves up. So you can always swap or directly redeem for something else and bridge that to wherever you want to go. There's going to be bridges to Ethereum. There's going to be bridges to AVAX and to Binance Smart Chain and to Phantom Chain and all these other chains. Eventually, there's going to be fiat off ramps. We can only hope, right? We're working on some for the USDL. I'm sure hopefully, like Richard is working on some, making some relationships, building relationships and rapport with some of these institutions, so maybe they can accept Pulse, right? There's always going to be a way out, but it may not be on day one.
Sure.
Right? We do have to have a bridge available.
Oh, of course. I think what we've heard is the first couple of days there'll be no bridge. There'll be, you know, tokens trading for tokens in the Pulse chain network, and then once the bridge is up. So what I'm talking about is, and let's really break this down step by step, because I want to crush this once and for all. Let's say there's no direct fiat on and off ramp yet, but we have the bridge to Ethereum. So how? Let's go from the protocol to the real world. So I come in, I mint myself.
So name a coin that the bridge allows. Well, just pick a random coin that the bridge may have on its list.
Pulse to ETH.
Oh, like if you wanted to bridge, and let's say Pulse was one of those things you could bridge, right? Pulse?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very simple. You have your USDL, you go straight to PulseX or to Uniswap, and you swap your USDL for Pulse.
Yeah.
Simple. And then you take that Pulse and you just go through the bridge. You're on ETH. Now you have to take your Pulse and you have to sell it for Ethereum and send that Ethereum to Coinbase.
Yep.
And then you can sell that for cash and get it out to your bank account. Right. So there's like 5 or 6 steps that you have to do. We're actually trying to eliminate all these steps because it's absurd that you have to do like 6 different things just to get out of any coin. But this is how all coins on the Pulse chain, like this is just how it is. If you wanted to get out of Link, you'd have to do the same thing. If Link isn't in the bridge, you'd have to go to PulseX or Uniswap, swap your Link for Pulse, take your Pulse to the bridge, enter into the bridge contract, switch your MetaMask settings to the Ethereum chain. Oh, there you see your Link waiting for you, or your Pulse, your wrapped Pulse or whatever waiting for you. Take that to Uniswap over on the Ethereum chain, swap that for something that Coinbase or whatever fiat off-ramp accepts. Swap into that thing, do another send back to Coinbase, wait 30 minutes for it to show up there, go to Coinbase, sell that thing for fiat, wait for that to happen, and then, withdraw to bank account and then wait for that to happen. Literally, I didn't even count. What is that? 7, 8, 9, 10 steps? But that's how every coin on Pulse Chain has to get out.
And it won't be forever. Anyway, what I'm trying to reiterate here, like we've said many times, is there might be 5, 6, 7 steps or whatever, but it's still not difficult. It's swapping one coin for another coin, bridging, swapping again to an exchange, and then you've got your money. Because so many times people have said, well, how am I going to get out? How am I going to get out? And we're explaining it right now. You can get out with a bridge. And remember, the bridge is the first step. Once the bridge is up, then we have that. Then we're looking for the on-off ramps straight to exchanges. And once we have that, you don't even need the bridge, because you can send USDL or Pulse straight to the exchange and exchange into fiat. But either way, unless, like you said, unless we just have a walled garden and then we're all screwed anyway, and this was all an experiment that didn't work, right? Unless we have a walled garden forever, there's a bridge. You can get out through a number of steps. If there's direct to exchange, even easier. So like you said, either way, there's going to be an on and off ramp. And there's a question here: are there any plans for creating a fiat off ramp using USDL? Yeah, there is, as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, of course, Pulse needs to go live, and then Liquid Loans can go live, and then obviously these things come in steps. It's not going to be overnight. We're not going to wake up and everything on Pulse chain is set up like Ethereum, right? because already
Mhm.
it takes a long time, as we know, for Pulse Chain to do the full system state copy. Things are going to come in steps, but all these things are coming down the pipe. And once we have that on and off fiat ramp straight to the exchanges, why would you even use a bridge?
You wouldn't. You would pick up your USDL. You'd send it straight to the bank. There are banks that are getting into the crypto game, right?
Yeah.
Or you'd send it direct to CoinSpot. You'd send it direct to Coin, whichever KuCoin or Kraken or wherever you're trying to get out. Send it direct to there and cash out to your bank account. It's very simple. And those conversations are being held with a number of those places right now.
Yeah. Obviously, these things don't happen overnight, but they're coming down the pipe. So also, I wouldn't mind touching on the liquidity pools and what are the incentives for the USDL liquidity pools on the DEXs?
I don't know what the rate is that was determined, but at least for a period of time, something like 3 months, for you to be a liquidity provider of USDL, you are incentivized. You're paid in loan token. It's interesting being a liquidity provider of a stablecoin, especially one that always pegs back to $1, because impermanent loss is mitigated. All right. So let's say you had, like, everybody should dabble in being a liquidity provider, but if you're going to do it, start with a stablecoin. Let me explain why.
Sure.
If you didn't use a stablecoin, if you had some random tokens, Link and ETH, okay, and then if people are selling their Link, you're getting more ETH, okay. But if ETH is also going down in value, it's like you're always going to have some sort of loss, one side or the other. Loss of value, because if people are dumping this thing, you're getting more of this thing, and you only hope this thing continues to go up in value.
The liquidity pools are rebalancing, correct? As people buy and sell, they rebalance.
Now, if one of those halves is a stable coin, all right, you still have some loss in value. You're losing these coins, and you're gaining more of these coins. But remember, that person just slipped the price. And there's an arbitrager who comes in right behind him and buys it back up again. All right. So it's like you gain this thing and you lost this thing. But the arbitrager comes in right behind him because there's that redemption feature back in the protocol. And then it just brings you right back here again. Okay. And now you just made fees. You made money on the fees from the first guy, and you made money on the fees from the arbitrager. Okay, so it really minimizes your risk, because with a stable coin, there's always going to be a guy who comes in behind the seller to buy the stable coin back up.
Gotcha. How about this? Tony asks, when I place my Pulse in the vault, do I give up my keys?
No, that's yours. That's your smart contract. It's just a DApp. It's just a DApp. You go in, the DApp interacts with the smart contract, and like, you don't do a send, you don't give up your keys or anything. Your seed phrase is still yours. Your keys, your coins.
100%. No admin keys, non-governance, immutable. I mean, this is true DeFi. The Liquid Loans protocol is true DeFi, and that's why I encourage everyone to go to liquidloans.io, look at the knowledge hub, look at the knowledge base there, read the white paper. Everything is there. A lot of people hear stuff and they don't do their own research, and then they just sprout off stuff like, for example, I've heard this one before. Liquid Loans just want your Pulse. How is that going to happen when the stability pool providers, they're the ones who get the liquidated vaults, they get the Pulse. So it's just read the white paper if you're confused about that. But maybe, Jesse, you can go more into detail about that. When people say, oh, they're just after your Pulse. That's literally impossible, right?
It's literally impossible. Nobody can come in and take away your Pulse from you. Unless the value of your Pulse falls all the way to the point, like right above the amount that you minted. Right. So let me give an example, because somebody's saying, how can I get liquidated?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about this.
If you put $100,000 worth of Pulse in your vault and you mint, $40,000 worth of USDL. Okay, you're very heavily over collateralized at that point, and you have time to react with the markets if you wanted to. Maybe Pulse would just do a 2x or a 5x or a 10x, and now you're super over collateralized. Now you have, $1 million worth of Pulse in there, and you've only taken a $40,000 loan, right? Like for you to get liquidated, it would be really hard. Maybe that happens. All right, but then if that $1 million worth of Pulse goes down in value and down in value, and it just keeps dropping, and the markets are just super red, black swan event for like months. And you say, wow, my $1 million worth of Pulse has now fallen back down, and now it's $100,000 worth of Pulse. Now it's $90,000 worth of Pulse. Now it's $80,000 worth of Pulse. $80,000 worth of Pulse, $40,000 loan. That's like a 200% collateral ratio. Maybe you're not comfortable with that. You have options. You can simply add more collateral or just pay back your loan. But if you just sit there and you do nothing, and the markets keep dumping, and that Pulse value goes all the way down to, you took a 40 grand loan, all the way down to $4,400 worth of Pulse, you're going to lose those Pulse. They'll disappear, because like if you were holding that Pulse liquid, you would have had $44,000. Like that's all you would have had. Your Pulse would have been worth $44,000. But in this protocol, you minted yourself some of that value up front. So if it falls to that value, you have to lose your Pulse, right? Because everything's backed by that same Pulse in the vault. So that's how you would get liquidated. If the value of your Pulse falls all the way down and gets really close to the value of what you minted, you will lose your Pulse. So collateralize safely. Take that USDL, go do something else with it. Make more money with that USDL. Do it wisely. I'm not saying invest in like crap coins or anything, but like there's other things you can do with stable coins to earn yields. You can park it in the stability pool, earn some loan tokens. If you see the markets don't feel right to you, withdraw your stablecoin from the stability pool and then just drop it back into your loan, pay back your loan with it. There's a number of things you can do, but that's how liquidation happens. It's a smart contract that says if the value of your Pulse falls all the way to what you've already minted with a little bit of a margin in there of only 10%, then you will lose your Pulse coins.
So just to reiterate to anyone watching, the system only cares about what you minted and 10%. And anything over that is yours to redeem or to withdraw at any time. So as Jesse said, keep an eye on the markets. It's very rare that you're going to see an 80-90% dip in one day. And if you're 1,000% over collateralized, the market would have to dump by 89, say 90% for you to be up for liquidation. So keep an eye on the markets, and maybe you pay back some of your loan, maybe you collateralize more and keep yourself safely collateralized, and you never have to worry about losing any of your Pulse. So obviously you have to take responsibility. You can't just take a loan and then never check it and go off around the world and hope everything's going to be okay. That's reckless. Obviously take a loan, safely collateralize, and always have one eye on the market, just making sure that everything's okay. Bitfinesse says, can we discuss liquidations via the entire system being too over collateralized as a whole? This is the only piece I'm cloudy on.
Well, the entire system will be over collateralized. We'll be over 150%. Do we consider, like, when do you use the term over collateralized? You always have to have more value worth of Pulse in the vaults than there is value worth of USDL minted, right? So just the very nature of the entire protocol, there's over collateralization. There's more Pulse value than there is USDL. So that's always the case. The system will force the averages of the vaults to maintain at least 150% total collateralization level or higher. And most people like to go above that. They like to go 200, 300, 500%. Okay. The average over on ETH floats around 200 to 300%, which means there's people that are collateralized at 5,000%. There's people that are collateralized at you know, 130%. There's a big range in there, but the average must stay over 150. There's mechanisms that kick in place if it ever falls below that. It's healthy for this. You have to have it over collateralized. Now, there are people that choose to be on the lower end of that spectrum. And of course, if like somebody's collateralized at 120%, and the market for Pulse, you know, Pulse is moving up and down in value, and Pulse falls by 10%. Now their collateral is only 110%. They would get liquidated. Okay, they put themselves at the bottom end of that spectrum, and minted more USDL than maybe they should have, or maybe they were using that as a stop loss for themselves. Some people may choose to do that. We don't recommend that unless you really know what you're doing. But like if you're on the lower end of the spectrum, you risk being liquidated if you're down there. As soon as you get close to 110, when you break under 110, you can be liquidated.
But just going back to what Bitfinesse said, I don't think there is a way you can be too over collateralized. If anything, being over collateralized is a good thing. So, you know, like we said, if you're risk averse and you've got enough pulse, be 1,000,000% over collateralized, right? The more your individual collateral ratio and the total collateral ratio is higher, the better for the system, right? And like Jesse said, there's systems in place, mechanisms in place, like the recovery mode, but that only happens if the system dips, the total collateral ratio dips below 150%. But as we see over on liquidity, the total collateral ratio there is around 250, 300%, if I'm right.
Yeah, 250, 300 in there. You know, I was looking at the vaults over there the other day. They call those the vaults troves over there. But there was one lonely guy who was like the most collateralized. He had like $1.5 million worth of Ethereum in there, and he had only minted like $2,500 worth of LUSD. He's so
collateralized. That's crazy. That guy wants to hold on to his ETH. Bitbump asks if you like to pay back the loan, do you have to do that in a total amount outstanding, or can you do it in little steps also?
You can do it in little steps if you want. If you want to pay it back, you don't have to pay it back. So, let me give you an example of that. If you put your Pulse coin in the vault and Pulse does a 10x, and now you're 10 times more collateralized than you started, like, why would you pay back your loan? Like, if you felt it was safe, you were at a safe collateral level when you first took your loan. Let's say you put in 20,000, you mint a $2,000 loan. You're 1,000% collateralized. You're super healthy collateral level. Like, your risk is really low at that point in time. But then Pulse just goes up and up and up, and Pulse does a 10x. So now you have, you know, $200,000 worth of Pulse, and you've only taken a $2,000 loan, and you're 1,000,000% collateralized, or 10,000% collateralized. Like, your first instinct wouldn't be, oh, let me go rush and pay back my loan. Like, you don't have to. There's no interest payments. There's no like monthly requirement or anything. Like, most people would look at that and they'd say, wow, Pulse went up so much in value. Looks like I can safely mint myself some more stablecoin.
Sure. I think why people ask that, and this was my question when I first heard about liquid loans, is I think it's just the thought of having a loan hanging over your head. But obviously, when you understand the system, it makes more sense. Again, not financial advice, do your own research, but it makes more sense. Why pay it back if you can just start minting more USDL and put that to work in the stability pool, buy another investment or whatever. But I think some people ask that because they're like, I just don't want a loan hanging over my head. So I understand where that's coming from. Bitfinesse.
Hey, you know what? Let me answer. Let me answer something, or let me cover something else real quick.
Okay.
I'm glad Bitfinesse is in here asking questions. Let me cover something real quick. When you sell, like traditionally, when you like listen to financial people on YouTube. What do they always tell you? Make sure you take profits. Sell when the price goes up. Don't sell on the bottoms. You always hear sell, take profits, take profits, take profits. And it's just interesting because let's say you started with, a quantity of coins. Okay. And they're worth a certain amount. They're worth $1 a piece or something. You got 100 of them. Okay. And the price doubles. And you're like, oh, sweet. I just got twice. I got a 2x. I'm going to take some money. Okay. So you sell half your bag. And you feel good because you got $100.
Yeah.
How many coins do you have left? You only have 50 coins now. Okay. And now if the price goes up some more, maybe the price goes up another 20%. You're like, oh, sweet. Let me sell 20%. Now you only have 40 coins. Price goes up a little more. Now you have 30 coins, 25 coins. And you're selling and you're taking money away. You're losing all the future price appreciation abilities of those coins, and your coin count is getting less and less and less and less and less. So an example of that versus somebody who never sells, it's absolutely amazing. If you started with $20,000 and you went through 10 doublings, but every time it doubled, you sold half your bag, you would only have $220,000 because you'd have 20 grand. The price would double. You'd shave 20 grand off, and you'd still only have 20 grand, and your bag size is cut in half.
Yeah.
Your coin count is cut in half. Price doubles again, you shave it off. You still only have 20 grand. And at the end of 10 doublings, you would only have 220 grand. Now, let's say, and if you told me, hey man, we just went through 10 doublings. By the way, there's a Richard Hart coin that's done that. It's done better than that. It's not unusual in crypto to go through something like that, 10 doublings. Now, if you started with 20 grand and you said, oh man, we went through 10 doublings, and I said, oh man, you should have tens of millions of dollars at least now. And you said, no, man, I only got 220,000. I'd be like, dude, you can't even buy a house with that. What are you talking about? You went through 10 doublings and that's all you got to show for it? And you said, well, that's what everyone told me to do. They told me to take profits when the price goes up. They told me to sell and get my initial out and all these things. I'd be like, dude, you're an idiot, right? Because there's a better way. Because if you just don't sell and you had 20 grand and you went through 10 doublings, that's $20,480,000 if you just never sell. If you held 20 grand and it doubled 10 times, you'd have $20,480,000. That's a big freaking difference. It's huge.
That's like $19,800,000 difference.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. So this is where loans come into play and how you can actually capture all that price appreciation. Oh, and somebody does mention in the chat, when you sell, you pay tax. So no, you don't have $220,000 because you paid 36% capital gains tax on all those gains, right? So maybe you only have, you just cut like 60 some grand off of all that.
150,
right? So you have way less. Yeah. So that's stupid. Compared to the guy who never sells, he has 20,480,000. But the guy who never sells does want to get some money out along the way. So he just safely collateralizes at whatever ratio he wants. I won't even talk about ratios in this scenario. He could be 5,000% collateralized and just take a really tiny loan out behind that if he wants to. And as the price does what you want, it's supposed to do, go up and to the right for pulse, you just mint some more stablecoin. The price goes up, mint some more stablecoin. And in that fashion, after 10 doublings, you would have all that money.
Yeah.
Your $20,000 would have turned into $20.4 million.
Yeah, it's night and day. It's sickening when if you'd be on suicide watch. And how many people in crypto have been on suicide watch after getting rid of Bitcoin, Ethereum, insert any good crypto that they got and they flipped it on a 2x or a 5x or a 10x thinking they're a genius, only to watch it run up and up and up and up Obviously, there's dips in the game, but over the long haul. So liquid loans allows you to do this with your pulse. And if you sacrifice your pulse, and some of you have, I'm sure, watching the stream, and you've got a nice juicy bag, do you want to sell that and pay all the taxes and lose your asset forever? Doesn't make any sense. Just going back to what Bitfinesse said, I think Bitfinesse was a bit had a bit of a misunderstanding. Yes, there's a recovery mode kicks in if the total collateral ratio of the liquid loans protocol falls below 150%, but there's not a recovery mode on the other side. It can't be, there's not like a recovery mode if it gets too overly collateralized. It can be as overly collateralized as it likes. All it cares about is if it dips below 150%, then recovery mode kicks in, where vaults that are even above 110% can be liquidated.
But only 110% of the value of what they minted.
Exactly.
Not that's their whole bag. Right.
As long as you're over 150% collateralized, doesn't matter if the system's in recovery mode or not, you'll never be liquidated. So what's the lesson to learn here? Always stay safely over collateralized. But there is no recovery mode if the system gets too overly collateralized. If anything, being well over collateralized on an individual collateral ratio or a total collateral ratio is highly advised, because that's a nice healthy system. You know, people can always come in and redeem. The system doesn't like it, obviously, when it gets near that risky 150%. And if it dips under that, then that's when the mechanism kicks in. Fantastic. This has been great, Jesse. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered some really good topics. What did we talk about? We talked about risk with fiat-backed stablecoins.
That's right.
We talked about why USDL is better, how every single one of them is directly redeemable. We talked about how to get it out, how to swap it or redeem it, and then get value out of the system if you want. We talked about safe collateral health. We talked about why you would just never sell, and the huge difference between somebody who doesn't sell versus somebody who does, who likes to melt their coin count away every time they sell. Yeah, I think we covered some good topics today. Thank you.
Fantastic. And if anyone wants to ask you a question directly, where can they get you?
Yeah, go to liquidloans.io. And I'm in there several times a day. Sometimes I'm in the voice chats. At t.me/liquidloans, Telegram. All right, get a hold of me there.
And you're normally dropping some knowledge in there, aren't you, on the voice chats too?
Yep, all day long, every day.
Wicked. Well, thanks, buddy. Catch you soon.
All right, thanks.
Guys, if you like that video and you liked Jesse dropping some truth bombs about liquid loans on you today, you can hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new videos. You can also hit the like button, share the video with someone who you think it may benefit, and also drop a comment below if you're watching the playback for the algo. It does help us out. If you need any more info on liquid loans, you can head over to our site, liquidloans.io, and also liquidloans.io/refer for all the information on the referral program. And again, like Jesse said, if you need any help, any questions, jump into our Telegram group, t.me/liquidloans. Our superstar admins are in there 24/7 answering your questions. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Have a great weekend. Peace.